So have you guys had any interesting medical things go on in your life? Because I certainly have, and I'm going to talk about a couple of them. First off, I'm still sick. I sound awful, at least I can speak. I'm gonna try not to cough too much in the midst of all this, but I am still sick. Second, I am using a different microphone than usual, and I hope this turns out okay. It seems like it's a pretty decent microphone for the quality. But I hope it turns out okay, and I hope it continues to turn out okay. The tests I did all sounded fine, so I think especially once I run it through my editor, it should be okay. Like my editing program. I do not have an editor. I do not have the means to hire an editor. God, I wish I did. But we're going to go over a couple of the interesting medical things that have happened in my life. First, though, let's get into talking about the art. Now, this is going to be the last pass for seeing the stickers for February's Sticker Club. This is also towards the end of the chances to get those if you're interested. The link to my Patreon is down below. I really love how these turned out. The little cafe things have actually inspired me to do more of them eventually for when I do open an online store. And I think that they'll be really cute, especially once I get like the past characters in there and I design more of the Trace characters for the modern group. Which on my Patreon, I dropped a new character for Trace if you want to go check it out. Lowest tier patrons get access to all of, like, the extra art that I post. So, that's about it for this one, so let's get into the video. Alright, so, weird medical things. Weird medical things, that's what we're getting into. But when I say weird medical things, I mean things that really freaked me out. First up, we're going to talk about the fact that I have I've had an organ removed. My gallbladder's gone. So a few years ago, it was in the middle of winter, and now, keep in mind, a lot of people, when their gallbladder goes bad, they get stones. They get stones or they get sludge. That's not what happened to mine, and I'll get into what actually happened to mine as we go. But we needed new tires, and this was the first time anything went bad at all with mine. Well, actually, let me rephrase that for a second. I did have one other thing that popped up. I just didn't know it was related. I used to absolutely love to eat eggs. Okay, I still love eggs. I love things like that. But I can't really eat them without my stomach losing its mind and throwing a conniption fit. And, like, it's awful. And I found out that happened because of my gallbladder and it messing up. So that was what happened with that. And because of that, I can't really eat eggs, and I didn't know that was related when that started up, but I digress. Getting back to the actual, like, progression of the story, we were getting new tires, and I suddenly started feeling really sick. It was winter, it was flu season, like now, and I had gotten my flu shot. Now, I'm one of those people, if I get the flu shot, I'm not gonna get the flu. If I don't get the flu shot, I get the flu. It happens every time, without fail. And it's really frustrating, and for me, because of the other medical thing that I'm going to talk about, when I get sick, it kicks my butt. It absolutely kicks my butt in the worst way possible whenever I get sick. It's horrible and awful, and it's just absolutely torture. So, sorry, I gotta adjust real quick. I'm having to hold the mic, and I'm not used to this. So we went to get tires, and I started feeling really sick, and I'm talking nauseous, I ended up feverish, all of that. You know, my fiance, she took me home, and the way our house was built, it was upstairs, mostly. It was like a townhouse. Downstairs, you had the garage, a side room, and the laundry room. And then upstairs was all of the main living space. So, I went upstairs whenever we got home. I curled up on the couch, and I was just miserable all day. I had a few different comforters on me, like, wrapped around me, but I was still freezing. And I was so cold, I was shivering and shaking. Now, most of the day, she was gone at her folks' house, and she came home later, and I still was just so sick. I tried to eat, but it didn't help anything. I ended up at one point, while she was gone, I was so nauseous and felt so sick, and it was like I needed to throw up, but I couldn't. So there was one point where I was literally just lying on the bathroom floor beside the toilet, absolutely miserable, because I'm terrified of throwing up anyway. I hate throwing up. I hate getting sick like that. It's absolutely horrible. But at the same time, it was like one of those things where I felt like if I could just throw up, I would feel better. So here I am, lying there on the bathroom floor, just caught between being scared to throw up and silently begging to not throw up, but also sitting here thinking, just let me throw up and get it over with. And nothing is happening. I'm just lying there on the floor, sick, with a fever. I had managed to get myself back in the, on the couch and nestled up in blankets before my fiance got home. Thank goodness, because I think she would have freaked out. Found out later I probably should have gone to the hospital, but, like, overnight, especially, it still stayed worse. Like, because it was closer to the bathroom, I didn't go to our bedroom to sleep. I actually stayed on the couch, curled up, and just, again, freezing. I was so cold, even though the house wasn't super cold. And the really scary part was that I almost passed out, and I almost ended up hitting my head on the coffee table. It didn't end up with that happening, thank goodness, but it almost happened. Because I ended up getting up and staggering to the bathroom. I was so dizzy. I felt so sick, like I was going to throw up. And again, I couldn't throw up. So I stayed in the bathroom for a minute because I was dizzy and I felt really faint. I couldn't get my balance. I'm clumsy anyway, so add that into the mix and that's just that much worse. So I end up staggering out of the bathroom. And then when I was almost back to the couch, I ended up like... I felt that I was just going to fall. I felt that I was going to collapse and just drop. Thank God I knew what it was and I figured it out as quick as I did, because I kind of threw myself towards the couch when I did, because I knew I was going down. My legs were not staying up. They completely just gave out. And if I hadn't done that, the way I would have fallen, I would have hit my head on the coffee table. But I ended up falling like halfway on the couch. And here I am, it's the middle of the night, it's dark, she's asleep in the bedroom, I don't want to bother her either, so I'm trying to be really quiet, but I'm like lying with my upper body on the couch, my lower body's still on the floor, and I just have to lay there like that for a few, because I'm so dizzy, I have no strength, I'm just so bad off, that after a bit, I was able to drag myself back up onto the couch, get curled up, and I guess I was so exhausted that I couldn't stay awake anymore, because I wasn't able to sleep at all that day, because I just wasn't able to, because it was so miserable. I think that exhaustion just caught up to me. So not long after that, because I got so sick, because, yeah, it turns out it wasn't the flu, but one reason why we didn't go to the doctor immediately, and why I didn't want to go to the doctor immediately, was because, like I said, the living area was mostly upstairs. The stairs were fairly steep. I did not think that I could get down them safely, and God knows, I live in the US. I am not calling an ambulance. Like, currently, going to the doctor, just even with insurance, is a stupid amount for a copay. I am not going to have an ambulance bill on top of everything. So, no, we're not doing that. But, so, I did schedule an appointment with the doctor, and I went. And I was suspecting a little bit that I might have issues with my gallbladder, because my mother had issues with her gallbladder, had to have hers removed at a similar age to what I was at the time. And my sister, Andy had already had hers removed, because hers ended up, like, awful with stones and all that, which a stone blocking the duct in the gallbladder can be very dangerous. It can be very bad and cause a lot of issues. That's one reason why if you end up with gallstones, they usually just take your gallbladder, because you can function without it. It's just your body might not handle certain foods as well, especially like greasy foods. They might cause issues with upset stomach, but that's why usually gallstones can be dangerous, so they just go ahead and take the gallbladder if it goes bad. So I went to the doctor. For one thing, okay, I've mentioned my fiance. Same person I was with at the time. I have never been in a situation where I could get pregnant. I understand and I acknowledge that a pregnancy test is just standard. It is standard, especially if nausea has been some of the symptoms. Pregnancy test is standard before going to the doctor if you're getting checked out for anything and you happen to have been born female. That is just how it is. I don't care. Give me the cup. I'll go ahead and I will give you the urine sample so that you can do the pregnancy test. I don't care. The way that this doctor did not believe me when I told her that I was about 100% sure that there was no way that I could be pregnant was ridiculous. And she, kept dismissing all of my concerns with what was going on with my body, despite the fact that I was having really bad pain. I'd had that bout where it felt like the flu. But I had this really bad bout of being so horribly sick. And then, when the pregnancy test came back, that lo and behold, I wasn't pregnant. I've been with the same person for years at that point. And no. Of course I wasn't pregnant. And I knew I wasn't, but like I said, I gave them no trouble about the freaking pregnancy test, because that's part of going to the doctor. If you happen to be born female, they have to rule that out, and there are plenty of people who lie. And then, pull the surprise Pikachu face when they turn out to be pregnant, when they knowingly lied about whether or not they could be pregnant. So, I don't care to take the test. But the way this lady acted, she was legit aggravated and angry that it turned out that I was right and she was wrong, because I think she was sure that I was pregnant, and she sent me for an ultrasound on my gallbladder. Well, the ultrasound came back with nothing abnormal, and when I explain what was actually going on with me, you'll understand why it came back as normal, even though it was having problems. Because what was going on with me does not always show up on the ultrasounds. So I went home. I left it for ages. I think it was another year before I actually got done what needed to be done with everything. Because after it came back as normal and there wasn't a problem found, what she should have sent me for was something called a HIDA scan. This is one of those where, they put an IV in you, they inject a certain thing into you. It's like a fluorescent thing goes through your body, and then if you have gallbladder issues, they essentially intentionally cause a gallbladder attack so they can see it on the scan, which sucks, but if it finds the problem, it finds the problem. Sometimes that's the only way to find the problem. But she didn't send me for one of those. What happened was, over a year later, I'm pretty sure, I was at work. I was cutting vegetables or something. I'm pretty sure it was vegetables. And I suddenly got this pain, because whenever you have bad gallbladder, you can get transfer pain that feels like it's in your back, rather than in the front on the right side where the gallbladder actually is. I got this sudden, sharp stabbing pain in my back that was so bad that I dropped the knife and ended up I hit the floor on my knees because it hurt so bad, and it came out of nowhere. I was fine, and then I wasn't fine. And that was horrible. So, I freak out. I call my fiance. Soon as I finished my shift at work, which was at about, I was getting off at 8. It was 7 o'clock when this happened. I really couldn't leave my shift early. I went and got her. We went to the hospital. They did another ultrasound. They didn't find anything, but they recommended me to a doctor who then finally recommended me a HIDA scan. So I went and I got that done, and let me just tell you, if you're not afraid of needles, it's fine. It's not a bad procedure. If you're afraid of needles and you're like me, who's a hard stick, it's awful. It is heck. It's horrible and awful, and I hated it, and I hate needles, but I just sit there and I let them do it because I just want it over with so fast, so I'm lying there on the table so they can put me in the machine. And first they try and stick me and it doesn't work. Then somebody else tries to stick me and it doesn't work. They have to call one of the OR nurses to stick me, and finally it works. And so they finally get it to work. And I'm laying there with tears just streaming down my face. I squeezed the nurse's hand so hard that when she walked away, even without my glasses, I could see her shaking her hand ow! After she walked away, because she let me hold her hand while they did the needle, because she could see that I was freaked out. But they got me in there. They obviously, whenever you do these things, whenever you go for an ultrasound or for a scan like that, you don't know anything until you're scheduled for a follow-up, or until they call you, or they mail you a piece of paper. Well, they scheduled me for a follow-up. They didn't tell me anything at the time. At my follow-up, I ended up finding out that my gallbladder was only functioning at about 19%. It was only functioning at 19%. Essentially, it just decided I quit and it was dying, which is not uncommon. Now, stones or sludge in the gallbladder are far more common. They are a much more common occurrence. If you feel like you're having issues with it, I do recommend getting it checked out if they don't find anything on an ultrasound. It never hurts to get a HIDA scan. I understand medical bills suck, but better safe than sorry, especially if you happen to have been born, female, if you were AFAB. And if you happen to be overweight, and you have a family history of gallbladder issues. I definitely recommend getting it checked out. Medical bills suck, but like I said, mine was down to 19% functionality. If it hits 0 and it up and dies, it can cause you to go septic, which is scary. So, this was in November. They wanted to get it out ASAP. However, because I live in the US, you had to have a certain amount to pay up front before they would do the surgery, unless it was like an emergency surgery. No, where mine was a planned surgery, I had to have a few $100s up front that I could pay them when I went to get the surgery. Now, they didn't tell me this until they called to do the little triage thing the night before the surgery, which was like, I got the HIDA scan in November. The surgery was supposed to be in December. So I ended up having to wait till January so I could have the amount, because they didn't tell me I was going to need to pay that amount. So I had to wait until January to have that amount, and so that I could save up enough off time to be able to actually, take time for the recovery period. Because my work does not really have light duty. It just doesn't. So, that's just the way it is. So I ended up waiting until January. And I went through the surgery. The surgery wasn't bad. It turns out I have like a really high pain tolerance. I took one heavy-duty painkiller at the hospital before they sent me home. Which, it's an outpatient surgery. You don't stay in the hospital overnight, usually. They bring you in, they do the surgery, they send you home. That's usually how it's done, unless you've got, like, major other things. And then they tend to do a follow-up appointment a week or so later after the surgery, whenever you have something like that done. The more interesting part happened at the follow-up, and this is why, if you think you've got something wrong with your gallbladder, get it checked and get it taken care of. Apparently, and he told me this, my surgeon told me this at my follow-up, apparently, between the HIDA scan and actually having the surgery done, when I had the HIDA scan done, it was at 19% functionality. Usually, if it's just going non-functional, they'll usually take it once it's under, like, 30% functionality, I think, so I should have gotten it checked a lot sooner, or at least had it monitored a lot sooner. But apparently, between the HIDA scan and the actual surgery, I had had a really severe gallbladder attack without knowing it. From what the surgeon told me, my gallbladder, I guess, had just up and died. It had up and quit, because whenever he went in to actually remove it, essentially they had to peel it off of the surrounding organs, because it had gone bad. And if something had happened and I hadn't been able to get it removed, it could have ended up with me going septic and ending up in a very bad situation. So, moral of the story is, get your gallbladder checked if it's a problem, or if you think it might be a problem. And just because they don't see anything on an ultrasound does not mean there's no problem. If they don't see anything on an ultrasound and you think your gallbladder is messing up, request a HIDA scan. Request a HIDA scan. Because if it's just going bad, it's not gonna show up. It may not show up. It's very rare that if it's going bad, it will show up on the regular ultrasound. The ultrasound is to spot sludge, which sometimes even that can be missed. Sludge can be missed on an ultrasound. But the primary function of the ultrasound is to find stones or sludge in the gallbladder. It doesn't really do anything if you're not functioning. So this ran a bit longer than I expected it to, so I guess this is going to be split into 2 parts. But that was the first of my weird medical things that happened to me. And the next one will be me talking about the immune disorder I ended up with. For the record, acute vasculitis is not fun and is a form of immune disorder. And it's absolutely awful to deal with whenever you have it first flare up. So, quick preview of that. But I do just want to thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, maybe click like and subscribe, especially if you want to see more stuff from me. I want to thank my patrons, Inside Chaos, Salmon, and Creativa Artly. I'm getting the hang of it now. But you guys are wonderful. Your support means so, so much. And I definitely want to thank you guys for that. And I want to thank everybody who watches. And I hope you guys enjoyed the story. And do you guys have any weird stuff that happened to you medically that you're okay with sharing? Because I know not everybody's okay with sharing. I enjoy sharing, but I know not everybody does. So if you have any that you do want to share, let me know down below. Because, sometimes it can be really cathartic to share, I'm not the only person who's dealing with crazy stuff. Okay. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!